Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Irish Illustrated Insider. I'm Tim Priester of Tim O'Malley from Irish Illustrated. We're joined by Pete Sampson of The Athletic, and it is Thursday, December 12th, and we're still talking Indiana. We're going to be talking about the Indiana Hoosiers and what a Hoosier actually is. Uh,
We are. I'm not
Oh,
prepared
a
for that.
history
no, I'm not.
lesson.
No,
All
I'm
right.
gonna. But I'm at some point in the next week. I'm going to bring that up. It's a little bit convoluted, as you can imagine. But number seven Notre Dame seed against the number 10 seed Indiana, and they're a good football team. We've said this for a while. I know a lot of people are trying to disavow that. I don't know if it's to feel better about the matchup or not, but I think it would be fair to say that, I mean, this is I don't want to say the best coach team that Notre Dame's played, but it could very well be in 2024.
Oh, I is there a doubt about it? Like
Well, I
who
mean,
would
I
be
think
better? Army,
I,
maybe.
yeah, I think yeah, exactly. And I think that he's brought out the best in the talent that he has. He's got most of his stars came from James Madison. So that tells you a little bit something about continuity. His coaching staff came with him virtually en masse, and yeah, but that alone is enough to catch your attention.
You know what's interesting to me on when Pete's point about only Jeff Monken for Army? That's probably true when you think of the whole staff because every time we looked at Mike Elko even when they were winning for the next 2 months, he was mad at one of his coordinators. I mean, that's relevant, if you're going to be
including
screwing
game,
your coordinator.
including
Yeah.
game one,
Yeah,
right out
yeah,
of the chute.
including game
Yeah.
one. I forgot that was game one. Yeah. I'm sorry, Pete. Go ahead. No,
It's
you're
like
right on
Notre
Monken.
Dame's quarterbacks were right. This guy's terrible. Yeah, I think Indiana's probably undervalued by the Notre Dame fan base just based on the Ohio State game alone. And yeah, I know you guys talked about it in your earlier podcast, but like Indiana's played 48 quarters this year. 42 of them, they've absolutely whipped their opponent. Like, not snuck by, whipped their
Yeah.
opponent. So you've
Notre
got
Dame,
Ohio State and the second half of Michigan.
they've
That's
scored in
it.
43 of their 48 quarters they've
I
scored. And you're right.
I feel like very similar to like Notre Dame season
Yes,
to me.
Right,
it
right,
is.
right.
Just like their loss was against Ohio State and Notre Dame was against Northern Illinois. But and I think like from the coaching point of view, the roster turnover at Indiana, I believe they had about 70 players. If you added the outgoings and the incomings, it was about 70 players.
31
The,
transfers in. So
yeah, and
But they let many
probably
out too. Yeah.
39 out. So or players just departing as well, not
right,
just
right, right.
transfers out.
Well, those
But
weren't
just like
publicized like Colorado's.
to pull that together and go 11-1 is just nuts to me. And I think Signetti, for how big his personality is, like he's earned a very big personality. He said Purdue sucks first. He was the first person to call that Purdue, in fact, did suck. That Michigan was going to suck. He was wrong on Ohio State. So I think the coaching job he's done there, I think, has been phenomenal.
Well, I totally agree, Pete. And the longer the deeper I get in my career, everybody knows this now. You guys know this. I thoroughly enjoy looking into the opponent because that's what it's all about. It's not if Notre Dame loses, it's not just Notre Dame's fault, and if Notre Dame wins, it's not just a credit to them. There are things going on the other side of the field. But I love doing this, and but the fact of the matter is that as great a job as Kurt Signetti has done, he didn't play Oregon, Penn State, Iowa, USC, or Illinois. And they combined for a 47-15 record. And the worst was USC at 6-6. And I think the entire country can agree that it's not like USC doesn't have talent. Obviously, they do. So, I mean, he caught a significant break there. But his complaints to I guess it was the CBS Sports about not hosting. I mean, just come right out and say that the committee was wrong, and all of these teams, including the team that we're playing next Friday, isn't deserving of hosting a game, and we are.
Yeah, he missed on one key thing, and Pete started touching on it. It said their season is similar to Notre Dame. Notre Dame has dominated most quarters as well that it played in. They lost to Ohio State. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. They lost to Ohio State publicly, floggingly, playing poorly, and being overmatched late in the season. Notre Dame never should have lost in 100 million years earlier in the season. I think there is a difference between the two losses. Now, is it better to lose to Northern Illinois than Ohio State? No. But is it better to lose to just get
September 7th.
worked over at the end of the year as opposed to September 7th? Yeah, it probably is because the committee is made up of regular humans and we all watched that Ohio State game. And to Priester's point, if they would have beaten USC or don't say Oregon, USC or someone else in late September, and we'd have known more about IU and believed in them before the Nebraska game or something like that, I think it would have helped their season out. But they didn't play those teams. You only play who you play, but he doesn't have a leg to stand on the hosting thing. I'm sorry, not when you get lit up like that at the end of the year. But I do think they are better than that team that played Ohio State. I am positive that was a Navy situation. It's not apples to apples, but
I
that
agree.
was way too big for them.
No,
That
I
moment
agree,
was
and I'm not, and I'm going to be the last person that's going to take anything away from what they've accomplished. But the fact of the matter is that they beat us, and I don't, mi playing Michigan's playing Michigan.
That's
I
how I
really
felt. I was impressed that
like
they fought through that bad game and beat Michigan, to be honest with you. I
Yep.
thought that was a pretty good effort by them.
no doubt. And then the other, then there were six other Big Ten teams that are 31 and 53. I just don't.
I
I
think the
mean,
way they absolutely murdered a couple of them was impressive. Not Purdue,
no
like
doubt,
Notre Dame,
no doubt, no
The
doubt.
Nebraska was
Nebraska
Nebraska,
performance.
a
Nebraska,
Hey,
viable
that's
team. Yeah.
like Nebraska took Ohio State to the wire. Look, I mean, Michigan beat Ohio State. Indiana
Yeah.
beat Michigan.
there you
Like
go.
I think it's within the margin for error that Ohio State could get a team like Ohio State if you don't drop a punt at your own goal line, if you don't
It
give
is.
up the Caleb Downs return.
Fourth and
Then you take then
25 to start the game.
yeah,
That's
then you take your chances. But
Ag-
like it, but Indiana's players are not as good as Notre Dame's players, and they're not as good as Ohio State's players. But
no,
their coaching job they've done, I think, has been phenomenal.
I agree. But you know what? You can't have 151 yards in your big game against Ohio State. You can't go, their opening drive till the end of the game to actually doing anything. And then, like, and he pointed out, this all those teams that are hosting, they lost to so and so and so and so. Okay, well, that's your criteria. Here's some other criteria. Notre Dame opened at 8-4, A&M and won. They went to Georgia Tech, which nearly knocked Georgia out of the playoffs, and they won. They closed out against USC. I realize 6-6, but that's a talented team. They hosted Louisville 8-4. Notre Dame won. You canceled your game against Louisville. You hosted 8-5 Miami of Ohio, and you won. You played 11-1 Army and 8-3 Navy in neutral sites and won by a combined 72 points. So there's a lot of criteria out there, Kurt Signetti, and you chose some really good criteria for your argument, but that's only part of it. And that's why I consistently defend the committee, because it's an impossible job. I don't care who you get in there, what administrators, respected coaches, former players, nobody cares. You're going to be criticized no matter how you choose. And really, at the end of the day, Pete, I'd like your opinion on this, since we talked about this the other day. At the end of the day, the committee pretty much got it right, did they not? I mean, at the end of
Yeah, I agree with what they did. I thought SMU over Alabama would have been very devastating as a college football fan if it went the other way. Just based, and I think, and it's Signetti's the point that he makes that I think is probably right on is that if Indiana was wearing a different helmet, they wouldn't have started unranked, and their terrible loss as Ohio State probably would have been viewed differently because they would have, they probably would have been number 2 in the country when that game kicked off.
it sucks being Indiana then, I
Yeah,
guess.
so it goes. At least you have basketball. So it, I love the way it's put together. I know Tim, you talked to Jack Swarbrick about this. I think the seating situation is ridiculous. With
it made
conference
sense back in the day,
champions.
though, right? Because
Yeah, it's
there were,
just like
there were
it
4
made sense
conferences.
when there were
Yeah.
5 power conferences.
Right.
And
Which
that's like,
he addressed that, Pete, that when they started negotiating this, there were
Yeah.
5 power
yeah,
conferences.
we brought
but
that
one
up
of
on
the
the
guys in the
podcast, yeah.
room broke it. So it's like Greg Sankey's in the room with you. I mean, I don't know. Kirk Signetti's gripe about playoff seeding is like 10th on the list of disingenuous arguments that I've heard over the last week and a half about the college football playoff and how it should work and scheduling and all of that stuff. But I like the 12 teams they put in. I would order them differently only in the sense of like I wouldn't have Boise State and Arizona State having a bye. because they won their conferences.
Not their choice though. Obviously,
Correct.
that's not the
But
coach's
they
choice.
right, but they have to. All right,
Yeah.
we can that's good conversation. And I just
Actually,
want to get
Tim
that out there.
Priester, I want to throw one more thing. The thing I have the most problem with anybody saying all week was Todd McShay saying we all know Alabama, Mississippi, and South Carolina are better because they're getting more pros. They should be in. And then he said, and it's the greatest retweet I've ever seen in my life. He said, Boise State, SMU. Maybe he didn't say Boise State. He probably did though. He listed 5 teams that would go 500 in the SEC. And the first tweet response to it was, so they would have fit right in with Alabama losing to 500 Oklahoma.
Yeah, exactly. You
Like,
scored
oh
3 points
my God.
against Oklahoma
It's
in
like,
week
that is
7 or what?
fantastic. That's just an incredible response. Like, yeah, they might have gone 500 and lost to the same teams you lost to, and they wouldn't have an argument either. I mean, to say we all know they're better, then they could have started the tournament in September
Well,
and
that's
had a
exactly.
64 team tournament starting in
I was just
September.
going to say that, Tim. Why are we even playing the regular season if that's how are they better? They scored 3 points against Oklahoma.
Who sucks too. I mean,
Right.
they
And
now Oklahoma played hard that game, but you know what? That's you should have
they
played
were
hard
they
too.
were they were completely unprepared to compete at a
Yeah.
high level against Oklahoma. So you're gonna why would you reward that team for getting in? SMU,
Texas killed Oklahoma. Like, think about
yeah,
that. Think of the teams that ran one on Oklahoma this year.
yeah. Pete, final thoughts? Are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm excited to sort of see this actually come to life next weekend.
Yeah, Tim, you're putting together a list of 12 quarterbacks, 12 playoff teams.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see, and I've seen another list, but I'm interested to see. And are you putting in Carson Beck? Or are you putting in
No,
his
so interestingly
backup?
enough, I got it from our message board. We do those burning up the board stories once in a while where we see a tweet or see an idea. And I just look back. I look back at all the quarterbacks. Them, of course, there's 4. All the quarterbacks over the years, and these guys. It's interesting to me that like the final 4 quarterbacks, and part of this is part of the delineation is because the conferences got automatic bids. But like if you look at at the 4 bye week quarterbacks, it's pretty clear that's Dylan Gabriel, by himself in that going into this game. Then you have, of course, I don't know where you would put Carson Beck, but I use Carson Beck's stats. But Madsen and Levitt, it's whoever you want to put higher than the others. And then, of course, Gunnar Stockton's last. Gunnar Stockton's last on everybody's list. He was last in the original tweet. The 8 guys that are playing next weekend, I mean, you could get 10 different opinions from 10 different writers completely on where you would rank those 8 guys. And so what I did was in the story, it's going to be coming out on irishillustrated.com today. It's a website, Tim Priester. Not a blog, Pete Sampson, as Brian Kelly once said.
Yeah.
But to your blog. But
We have actual careers
Yeah,
as journalists. Yes.
was that The Athletic or Irish Illustrated back then, Pete?
That was Irish Illustrated.
Was it really? All right.
Yeah.
So, but sorry, my point is I broke down like where they rank literally like passer efficiency 1 through 8, total yards, rushing and receiving. I mean, rushing and passing, of course, interception, touchdown ratio, which Riley Leonard is very high, by the way, on these lists. So I broke it all down, but the most fun part is I diverged as usual, and I looked back at the 10 other playoff quarterbacks and just ranked them 1 through 4. Pete knows this one well, but so the best year, there's some crappy years at the beginning, but the best year, it hurts so bad to read them. 2019 is the best. Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Fields. And my point is, nobody on this list of 12 is on that list of 4.
Wow.
Kyler
Yeah.
Murray, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence, and Ian Book.
There we go.
How do you win? How do you
Always
win when you read that?
the
And how
always
do you win
underrated
with
Ian
Trevor
Book.
Lawrence, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Ian Book also? Like, I know Mac Jones isn't great, but Mac Jones had Apollo and Olympus on his sides to hand the ball off to and throw to, so he had a pretty good situation. It's fun to look back, though. There's one year, Tim Priester, you might not be able to. I don't know if I know people probably remember Jake Browning when I say Jake Browning.
Yeah.
You don't really think of him. But one year, Alabama beat Clemson in overtime, the really good playoff game. Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, but 2 years before he was Baker Mayfield, he was just Oklahoma's quarterback, Baker
Right.
Mayfield. Jake Coker from Alabama won the
That's
title.
the one I always forget.
Connor Cook, Michigan State was the other one. And the year before that, you had Blake Sims of Alabama. Cardell Jones beating, of course, Blake Sims, but then it was Winston and Mariota. You had 2 Heisman guys like back-to-back years in a
Wow.
matchup in the semifinals. So nothing like the 12. My point was nothing like the 12 we have this year. It's really
No.
Dylan Gabriel and some guys with good numbers that are good quarterbacks, but that's
Yeah.
it. There's no like legends in this group.
There was the time, and going back in history when teams with average quarterbacks were winning national titles on a regular basis.
Yeah, like Penn State
Get,
beating
Yeah.
Vinny Testaverde with what's his name? John
yeah,
Schaefer. Was it John Schaefer or something like that? It was
yeah.
just I can't even remember his name. That's crazy.
When everybody started putting the ball in the air a little bit more, that changed. But I'm interested to see that story, Tim, because where's Leonard going to fit on the hierarchy
So,
here?
so he's a little higher. I'm asking the people to rate them.
I
I
see.
gave you all the facts to go ahead and rate them yourself, but that's why I wanted to put down different levels. Like Riley Leonard, he's a 30 to 5. I did not include fumbles because they're really hard. Most people don't actually include fumbles anymore in their official stats, including Notre Dame. I don't know why. I know Riley Leonard had the fumble against Louisville. I can't
Yep.
recall him losing another fumble.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. And
No.
but your guess is that these quarterbacks have all lost a fumble. But Riley Leonard's total touchdowns to interceptions is 30 to 5. Klubnik is 40 to 5.
Yeah, I was going to say
That's shocking to me.
Klubnik has had a great year that I don't think a lot of people appreciate.
Ewers is the only one that's like old school, not as incredible. 26 to 9. That's like 1999 level good year. And then of course I brought up Pete Sampson because I was looking at these touchdowns and our favorite stat ever:
Joe Burrow,
60 touchdown passes. Tim Priest.
60 touchdown
Four
pass.
per game, an average of four per game, 15 games, 60 touchdown passes.
Oh,
That's
gosh.
that's got to be a misprint. And no, it's
Different
not.
sport.
60 touchdown passes.
Throwing a Jamar Chase. I mean, that's why Tate's going to win his fantasy football championship. He has Burrow and Chase, but they were in college.
Oh God. Anyway, so those are different quarterbacks in 2019 than now,
Yeah.
which is another reason Notre Dame can win the national title. Ending on a happy note right there. That's it.
All right, sounds good. Looking forward to it. Irish Illustrated subscribers, if you're not one, become one so you can read Tim O'Malley's story here. 'Tis a season of giving, so the secret ESQ sale lives on. Use code Irish Illustrated and get 25% off all online items through Christmas, not valid on gift cards or custom items. Check out ESQ's award-winning dress shirt on your favorite players and coaches and give the gift of style. If you're visiting Chicago, explore all of ESQ's bespoke options. With more than a decade of creating handmade bespoke clothing, ESQ's tailoring expertise will craft a garment as unique as you. Check out esqclothing.com. Segment 2 coming up, burning up the boards.
If you're coming to a game this season, you have to check out Game Day Your Way, Notre Dame's tailgate service provider. Game Day offers everything you need, including tailgate gear, catering, and even beverage delivery right to your spot. And their Irish Express transportation from Chicago allows you to tailgate while you travel to their all-inclusive party zone in South Bend. Let Game Day deal with all the hassle so you can focus on the fun. For tailgates, tickets, transportation, and more, visit GameDayYourWay.com.
Welcome back to segment 2, burning up the boards. Our first question from Eddie Davis: thoughts on Tommy Rees finishing runner-up for the North Carolina job?
I was sitting at the exciting Notre Dame men's basketball game against Dartmouth last night, up in the dark where I can barely see the court. And I sit next to Jack Sobel of Blue and Gold, and he said Tommy Rees finished second to Bill Belichick, and I was not aware of that. Pete, you may have been aware of that happening. We've said all along Tommy Rees is going to get a head coaching job soon. I think it would have been neat for him to get that. I don't know how long Belichick signed a 5-year contract. I don't know how realistic he is fulfilling all 5 years. I would have liked to have seen it just to see if it would translate with Tommy Rees.
Yeah, I had heard from a source that he was also in contention for the West Virginia job, which ended up going to Rich Rodriguez. And I'm just like thinking back to his playing career. I just walked into an interview session and be like, hey, just so you know, 12 years from now, you're going to finish runner-up to the greatest head coach of all time and the head coach of Michigan for a head coaching job. And you're like, what the heck are you talking about? It's look, I know there are Notre Dame fans who keep banging away about like, I don't understand what you guys see in Tommy Rees, but like how many people in the college football and pro football industry need to see something in Tommy Rees before you also see something in Tommy Rees. Because
Okay,
you know we're Nick
yeah,
Saban, like
right. We're
that's
just
done.
gonna disavow Nick Saban's
Yeah.
opinion about it. I don't have any allegiance to Tommy Rees or anybody else. I just thought that he was a creative coordinator. Now, did he do a good job of bringing in the best quarterbacks? No, and it was an offense still really stuck in 13 personnel a lot. And it's hard to really flash when you're doing that. He's got a really, really good offensive mind. Is he ready to be a head coach? I don't know. He obviously thinks he is, and to come close for those two jobs is impressive.
That would have been strange to me if Tommy Rees got the North Carolina job. Although I guess he's been an offensive coordinator at Alabama, so the next step after that is usually a job. But Belichick will present more challenges, I would think, when you're going to the film room, the offensive film room, than a lot of guys you could put in that spot. What a strange world that Bill Belichick is North Carolina's head coach. I heard a really interesting conversation on it yesterday. I think it was Chris Canty, the former Virginia player, talking about. He said, "I am not 99. I am not even 1% of the coach Bill Belichick is. Obviously, he's an announcer that played in the NFL. But he goes, if you gave me $100 million, I could put a roster out there that could beat Bill Belichick in college. So he's going to have to get some money in order to have enough good players to run his scheme to beat people. It's a great point. Like 100 million is of course insane. That would be five
Well,
times
look,
what somebody else is doing. But
they wouldn't choose him unless they were prepared to spend.
no, no, no. I was about to say, and they're going to be going all in on NIL too.
Yeah, I mean, they're paying him $10 million a year,
Yep.
so they're already ponying up for that. But they're gonna have to stay after that with the roster now.
From MN Irish 2019. After watching the Maryland, Northwestern, and Ohio State games, would you say that IU has an athletes in space issue defensively? What are the best ways for Notre Dame to get the ball in the hands of its skill guys outside of the run game against this IU defense?
Yeah, I think anybody that has analyzed this game or taken a look at Indiana would come to that conclusion. Now, D'Angelo Pons, their cornerback, I think JB mentioned it the other day that he's got a chance to play in the NFL, and that's definitely true. Another James Madison guy. I mean, it's just amazing. This is where continuity, like you talk about bringing in a bunch of recruits. Well, if you bring in a coach who brings in his good players, that went 54-10 in the coach's last 5 years, that's a different equation. But beyond that, I think they do have some issues on the back end. And I like Jalen Walker, their Mike linebacker. I like Aiden Fisher, their Will linebacker. They do a really good job with their nickelback. Terry Jones Jr. is really a line of scrimmage guy. I think if you get him in space, I don't even know how much they allow him to be in space. I think that's where the issues are. So yeah, Riley Leonard's going to have to be able to throw the football in this game. I think, read option, tons of read option. You want to get, I don't know if we have another question about this. Actually, I think it's the next one, so I'll save that. But Notre Dame's receivers, Bo Collins has to catch the football and stay focused on the game that he's in. He's got to maintain his blocks, which he didn't do on the play that Jeremiah Love hurdled on, which would have been a touchdown if he had just
He
stayed
blocked
with
pretty
his
well
man.
until that. Were you surprised by that, Tim? He blocked well this year. I thought downfield he did a good job
No, he
blocking.
did. He did. It's just like he disengages in the moment so quickly sometimes, especially with the drops. But yeah, I think the answer to the question is that Jordan Faison needs to have a big game here. Jaden Harrison would be a guy that I think could have some success against these guys. But it starts with Riley Leonard delivering the football on time and accurately.
I don't might be I don't think Notre Dame has this huge advantage on the outside. Like they need to play to their strengths. It's Riley Leonard in the run game. It's Jeremiah Love. It's Jarian Price. It's Mitchell Evans. Like I would expect this to be a fairly quiet night for the wide receivers. In part because Indiana's good. Like Notre Dame needs somebody to step up and make a play or two or three, but I don't think this is a game where Notre Dame has this big talent advantage outside the numbers that they can lean on and just sort of kind of lean on Indiana that way.
let me tie it in, Tim. I'm sorry. I'm going to
No,
tie it
you're
into
good.
our next question, which is from Irish from A2, and that's, do you anticipate Riley Leonard getting more design runs versus Indiana against stingy run defenses? A quarterback run can really open things up. And the reason I tie that in is because Pete, you weren't with us on Monday, but one of the things I said, Marcus Freeman talks about football and football. Indiana does not play football. They are attacking the line of scrimmage. And so that's why I say, read option, uh, uh, play action fakes where you get those linebackers to crash the line of scrimmage, because that's what they want to do. They want to crash the line of scrimmage with their nickelback Terry Jones. So I think that's how that helps loosen things up on the back end a little bit. But again, Riley Leonard's going to have to deliver the football. But yeah, I know what you're saying, but having having heard from some people, I think in the know, and then having watched a lot of Indiana film, I think that Notre Dame is going to feel like, you know what, there's some stuff on the back end that we can take advantage of. But I think it all is precipitated by what I just said about what happens up front and getting that front seven to really attack the line of scrimmage and then hitting behind it.
Here's the play that I think Notre Dame's going to have to hit a few times. It was at USC. Riley Leonard rolls out and finds Chris Mitchell, sort of like a seam intermediate route. Whereas essentially it was a play action and then a play action, because is he going to hand it off? Is he going to run it? No, he's going to throw it. But the defense is sort of broken down at that point, and Riley Leonard has a clear view of what's happening, opposed to sitting in the pocket and throwing a back shoulder fade to Bo Collins, which was the
Yeah.
big play at Texas
Mitchell did a
A&M.
nice job of
Yeah,
adjusting on that play
much
too.
more those are the plays I think Notre Dame's receivers are going to have to make on Friday.
I agree. And I'm going to stay with this for a long time. Last night was a bad example, but Tim Priester, I told you and John Bryce, we got to go outside every day at 8 o'clock and see what the weather's like. Well, I mentioned the last night that if they played last night, the final score would have been 12-4 because nobody could have completed passes. I don't think Notre Dame. I think it's going to be hard for the back shoulder fade to work for Indiana, and I think Notre Dame's going to have trouble throwing the ball down the field. I like the idea of Mitchell Evans in the seam, Riley Leonard, as you mentioned, RPOs, play action, but I don't think he's going to hit it downfield. I don't think teams are going to pass that well when it's 22 degrees at 9 o'clock at night in South Bend, Indiana in the winter. The
It's
air,
really
everything is different. It's way colder. It feels way worse than November. They've not played in this before. Nobody has. I think Riley Leonard is going to run a lot, including the Riley Leonard joke that we all laughed at because it's so fun in the middle of the season when they're winning all the games in a row. I'm going to take my read and I'm going to go. I think you're going to see a lot, even though it's not the plan, that Riley Leonard runs after read 1.75. I hope he gets to 2.
and that's okay because you're not playing 3 weeks in a row, 4 weeks in a row, 5 weeks in a
Right.
row.
Yes, no longer. That was my whole point to Freeman when the first bye came and Leonard had run, other than obviously the Purdue game, he had run 11 times in the half basically against NIU, 12 against Miami, 14 against Louisville. It's like you can't keep this up. They
Yeah.
did not. He's
No.
fine. He's going to run 15 times in this game.
I wonder
I
if
agree.
how I wonder how much if I wonder how much they would have kept that up had he not had, speaking of something we never talk about
Oh, yeah.
anymore, the left shoulder injury in
Was he
game
injured? I
two.
heard he wasn't injured.
Well, Mike, okay. Payne from, yeah, because
Okay.
Mike Denbrock, I'm using disavowed for the second time in this podcast, disavowed my notion that he was injured.
You might get to use it a third time if you.
Is
if
it
you're
like
careful.
a guy can be hurt but he's not injured? Is that how you would phrase
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So the hurt shoulder that he had, it never really came into play again, which
He was
we
able to
did not
run.
believe.
He was able to run 6 times, 5 times, 8 times, 10 times once. That's weird. That was Stanford. That was dumb. It really it was just it must have been the Virginia game. He ran 12 because they needed it. Well, yeah, because Jeremiah Love had like 6 carries in one of those games. It was so strange.
Yeah, they were
But
1 for 12 on third down.
yeah, that's right. That's right. That's what it was. So anyway, Riley Leonard's gonna get the ball a lot. And I want to throw one more thing in there because it's a related question. Tim Priester, you brought this up to Mike Denbrock. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but Golden by name asked, have we noticed that Leonard is jumping when he's running in short yardage situations? You asked Mike Denbrock that, right? And he does not want him to do that.
I think
I asked him
it was
that, yeah.
Pete
that
asked him.
asked it,
Okay.
yeah.
Pete asked it. Okay. Yes, we have noticed. And it's not a good thing. They don't
No,
want
and he
that.
did. He
Very
sort of
cringy.
he sort of tried to do it again against USC, and it was a bad decision then too.
Yeah. Now the run against Florida State where you're full speed and you're jumping 5 yards into the end zone, that is a Riley Leonard staple. That's great because he flies over. He's that's using his athleticism and full speed run to jump into an end zone. Everybody
Yeah,
should do that if
yeah,
they're
yeah,
capable. Yeah.
yeah. That's a
Yeah.
dive. That's not a jump.
Right. Right.
Hey, I may have mentioned this. Pete didn't hear it. How about Jeremiah Love? Like with each of his three hurdles, he just got better and better at it. He did
Yeah.
against Northern Illinois and kind of stumbled coming out of it. And then the second one against Army, he stuck the landing. And then the third one against USC, he jumped over and just went in stride.
That one was incredible. I still contend the Army one. He just waited for the guys so he could jump over him.
Yeah.
He's like, this is gonna be fun.
Perhaps true, but I mean, short of like throwing his arms back, like and when you stick
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
as a gymnast.
Oh, the third one, the USC was incredible. As you pointed out, if Bo Collins gets the block or if he's just 1 yard closer to run that guy over in the end zone, it would have been an
Yeah.
all-time highlight. Next question is from Showtime 22 times 1. I don't really know what that handle means, but we could ask him someday. If you could pick any ex-NFL coach over the age of 70 to coach ND, who would it be? Every once in a while I miss a question. I did not know this was in here. That's good.
I'd pick Lou Holtz because he's the greatest coach that I've ever been around. Oh, that's
He is
right.
technically an ex-NFL coach.
Yeah.
And he isn't. Yes, and he is an ex NFL coach for. It wasn't. I think it was 13 games. I don't.
The Jets, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
with the
Jets,
Jets.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe they may only been playing 14 at that time. He didn't make it through the whole season, right? Isn't that right?
No,
Well,
yeah, I don't think he did.
How old is Saban? 73?
Yeah, I think it's kind of an automatic answer to the question.
All right. Would you take 73-year-old Nick Saban
Yes.
or
Wait, was there another option?
there is another option, or 60-year-old Urban Meyer?
Oh, also an ex-NFL coach.
Exactly. Lasted about as long as Lou. Yeah.
Still going with Saban on that one.
I think
You don't have to shower. You don't have to shower if they hire Saban. Is that why you like it better?
choose and win. Either way, you're going to win.
Yeah, that's true. Feel a little,
I gotta-
less like yourself maybe if they have Urban Meyer come in.
I got a kick out of Mac Brown, who, he said, it was, I don't know if you saw his like departing press conference, but he's like, when it's time to go, man, it's time to go. Like he didn't,
No, I didn't see
like he
that.
didn't, yeah, like he didn't even try to couch it. It's like everybody knows it's time for me to go, and so do I.
Yeah, I like Mac Brown. He's always been a nice person.
Yeah,
Very complimentary of Notre Dame and Brian Kelly walloping him every time they play too. He was always very nice about it.
yeah. Who else? I mean, who else? I haven't given this a whole lot of thought because it's not.
Well, Saban, I
it's
think,
not-
was who he was looking for.
Yeah, I know,
obviously.
but I mean, it's
Yeah,
not from
yeah.
the pool of like when you think about okay, Marcus Freeman leaves. It's not from the pool that you're
How old's Pete Carroll?
drawing from.
Ooh, yeah, I think he'd be fine too.
He's probably he's older than me, and I'm getting up there.
I did not think we'd be bringing up Pete Carroll, Urban Meyer, and Nick Saban coaching
Yeah, I
Notre
didn't
Dame
either.
in this segment either, but here we are. That's
All
good.
right, so we're going to go on to a question from SF Castillo. How good is Signetti as a coach? Really, he appears to be at an all-time peak. If you were him, would you be looking to coach a blue blood program after this playoff run? I don't see Indiana making another playoff in my lifetime.
I mean, they might not, which is fine because who saw them making it this year? Look, their schedule next year, since you referenced their schedule this year, they play Illinois, they're at Iowa, they're at Oregon, they're at Penn State. So probably not 11-1 next year, but he just signed a huge contract extension, and he's still at a place where, I mean, if they go 7-5 next year, awesome season. Like the expectations there are not suddenly 11-1 every year. So I think he's in a good spot. But it's a fair question because like you can't take half your roster from James Madison every year.
Yeah, that's true. But obviously he's going to dip into the portal. Right.
Yeah.
And he won't have that, but the continuity that we were talking about, continuity in
Not everyone will
transfers.
speak his
Right.
language.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. But I think he's a really, really good coach. I mean, I don't see any reason to discount that. Even with the transfer, he's made the James Madison players some of their best players. Now, Rourke is from Ohio, and he had already established himself in
He hasn't transferred
2022, and
yet
then he
previously.
tore his ACL with 3 games to go, and he's not nearly the mobile. He didn't really have a good year in 23, probably because he was still trying to recover from the injury. But he's a really, really good coach. Notre Dame needs to be really well prepared to play against them because he maximizes. Man, the maximization of the roster is incredible.
Coach of the year, right? Does he get
Yeah,
your vote? Does he get your
Yeah, it
vote?
has to
Yep.
be, right?
Yep.
absolutely.
I voted for Signetti for coach of the year. There was Freeman is one of the, is it 8 or 10?
I think it's 9.
Might be 9. Yeah, it's a weird number. So you're right. It's a weird number of 9 for Eddie Robinson. There'll be another one, the George Munger Award. I voted for Signetti as my coach of the year. I mean, Lashley, had he won the ACC from SMU, would have been a really good call there. It's hard for me
We
with
knew
Dan
they were.
Lanning.
We knew they were going to be good, though.
We
Yeah,
did,
we knew
yeah.
SMU was going to be good.
Not that good though,
Not that,
right?
not
Like,
winning the not winning
No,
the ACC like
I,
with
I
one loss.
I was
yeah.
on
So
record as
here,
saying they were going to compete for the ACC
Yeah.
championship.
here
So
are the candidates: Marcus Freeman, Shane Beamer, Kurt Signetti, Spencer Danielson, Kenny Dillingham, Dan Lanning, Rhett Lashley, Jeff Monken, Kirby Smart. I think
Kurt,
Freeman
you
would
can't
be in
vote
the Freeman would be in
Kirby's-
the top half of the list.
Yeah,
Kirby
Freeman was my 5th. I got to name 5 guys. Actually, I was
Okay.
Signetti.
Kirby Smart. He should be 8-4.
Yeah, Kirby Smart wasn't even considered.
he
You know,
could
That's why
be.
he's such a good coach. He's
he
not
could-
8-4. How about that?
yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, it was all Kirby Smart. He got those guys, those plucky underdogs, to play well against Georgia Tech.
Got him to believe.
Monken obviously, if he beats Notre Dame, you're like, well, they're undefeated. If Jeff Monken goes to the top of that list. Yeah, that's how that goes, but it wasn't close. So Lashley was a great call. You know who's always hard for me in these situations is like Lanning was preseason number 3. They're preseason number 1. They're the best team. He did a great job. He beat everybody he had to beat. I had to just like put him at 3. I don't know how to put Dan Lanning in there compared to Lashley, and it's certainly not Signetti.
Yeah,
Like, that's a real Dillingham. Like Arizona State was picked last.
it's almost a separate award for those
It is.
that you
It's
knew,
like-
right?
Like Krzyzewski only won like the ACC Coach of the Year once. Like, okay,
Yeah, Coach
sure.
of the year. Coach of the year stuff is slanted because of that. All right, we have I'm going to throw it to you guys first here. From OC Irish One, with other schools already hosting portal players, how is Notre Dame not falling behind in the pursuit of coveted players?
They are hosting portal players, and they are locking them up as much as can be locked up without probably telling the portal player to don't make your Instagram post. And if I was Notre Dame, they're probably doing this too. Here's some extra money in NIL not to make an Instagram post. What world do we live in? You think they don't just say, here's a little bit more, don't post. Oh, cool. It looks like a good chunk of change not to post on Instagram today.
Yeah, that's like Notre Dame. They manage the announcements of the prospects in high school. It's the same thing in college. Like as if Riley Leonard really committed on the day he announced he committed, and he just happened to have a video of him walking in Notre Dame Stadium with Benjamin Morrison and Xavier Watts. Like, what are the odds of that? So all this stuff is done in advance. I don't think Notre Dame's falling behind at all. They're just not speaking this all into existence as much as they normally would as kind of
Without a playoff game.
promotional. Yeah, as a promotional tactic. Like usually it's good for Notre Dame to be advertising, hey, look at the job we're doing in recruiting. This is kind of one of those times where the inverse they feel is true. I'm not sure I agree with it, but that's their position.
The whole thing makes me completely uncomfortable because it's counter to what our responsibility is, and that's to report. What'd you say, Pete?
Yeah.
Reporters are reporting.
The verb of your job is in the name of your job.
The issue is sometimes when you get the names from someone that tells you not to report, well, then that is the exact opposite of a reporter's job is too. You're not supposed to do it because you wouldn't have the name. You would have the source that gave you. Look,
Right.
How many names have we ever had about guys getting in trouble at Notre Dame? And the person's like, I'm going to tell you this, but you can't report it. So you can't report it until you get like 5 other people to tell you, right? Because then it's no longer that
just
one
like-
person's information.
Somebody gives you something off the record. It's off the record.
Yes.
That's how it works. That's fine. But if you can get it on the record from somebody else,
That's reporting.
Right.
That's
On
how
the
it
record.
works. That is how it works. Yes.
Um, so yeah, I think it's uncomfortable for us, but I think that we want to respect the notion of Notre Dame playing Indiana on campus first, right?
Yes, I believe that Notre Dame will be talking about hosting. Well, they can't host. The portal closes on the 28th, and there's a Christmas season there, but they'll be talking about portal additions after win or lose, especially win or especially lose. I mean, the IU game on campus hosting in front of. I mean, how much effort do you think Notre Dame hasn't had a player go in the portal officially? That's impossible. Someone's leaving. They have enticed players in a way not to announce. They have. This is not a. People act like NIL some. Well, they wouldn't do that. NIL's for everything. The money's for everything right now. It's
Yep.
all free to do anything. You know when you see 5 quarterbacks sitting at a men's college basketball game? Oh, isn't that cool? They're all hanging out. Yeah, it's super cool. Can't believe they would go do that. I would go do it too if they gave me that money to do that. So look,
Yeah.
they have not announced a transfer. They're keeping it in house because they're trying to focus on this game. I don't think they're going to do that for the sugar. No, what's it called? It's still called the Sugar Bowl. The quarterfinal
Sugar
Sugar Bowl
Bowl.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to continue for the quarterfinal Sugar Bowl because it's no
Not
longer
not that we're
parading
necessarily.
recruits in front of your team saying these guys are replacing you.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about that. And I realize that Notre Dame followers feel cheated that they're not getting names, but like if you're like talking about wide receiver, we know wide receivers and defensive tackles. If you're
Right.
talking about if you start throwing those names out there
Well, like
before
I
they
put on the board so you don't have to do a hypothetical. When Arch Manning walks in there, Steve Angeli and Kenny Minchie and CJ Carr are going to feel a little weird. It's going to be a strange thing. So they have to wait to bring in Arch
Yeah.
Manning until those guys are off campus. See?
well
Just say that.
24/7
Can't believe they're getting Arch Manning.
I know. I broke it here. So there we go.
24/7 has announced a visit from Notre Dame. Tim,
Well, I put it down. So good radio here. Yeah, we want to give credit because Chris Hummer from 24/7 put on our message board that Tulane defensive tackle, and I've lost it. That's how good he is.
Parker
You guys
Peterson.
remember? Yep. Is a person of interest. I don't think he's visited. I think he's been offered by Notre Dame. That doesn't mean he's visited. Back in the day when Jason Onye was kind of part of next year's plan, or it was part of this year's plan, I mentioned that Gabriel Rubio was kind of our starting point for what does Notre Dame need in the portal. I thought they needed a player better than Gabriel Rubio, a player almost as good as Gabriel Rubio, and then Onye, Heinisch, Sevillano, whoever else you have. That gives you a playoff 6 to go compete with next year. This would be not the player better than Gabriel Rubio upon first blush, although they're different players. Is that fair to say without a full film review?
Yeah, I haven't seen
But
him
it
yet.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
it wouldn't be the level of it's not the level of well, I mean that's not fair to say because we didn't think JJB was the level of guys he was replacing and he actually ended up being better
Yeah.
than the people he was replacing. But in terms of when you look at the raw numbers and look at his impact, this is a secondary piece defensive tackle they still need, in my opinion, a clear cut. This is our best defensive tackle. He's coming in right now.
And a clear
This
cut
would be a
no.
little bit more Chris Smith.
Yes, who Gabriel Rubio's better than Chris Smith.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that was the point is you need a guy that can challenge to always be part of your 2 deep along with this guy who's better than all of your players, in my opinion.
And while we're mentioning the name Gabriel Rubio, we have a question from VA Doc 88. No, I'm sorry, from Maltese. We do have a question from VA Doc 88.
But now you're getting skipped, dude. Yep.
But that's it. We're going to come back to you. It's from Maltese Irish. It was posted elsewhere that Gabriel Rubio had entered the portal, although it was taken down shortly after this. Seems like it was more than a typo, as some called it. Can you share any insight into this?
Well, it was weird that it appeared. I don't have any extra insight into it, but if a guy missed a spring semester, it's humanly possible he wouldn't come back for another spring semester. There's one way of looking at it. But Gabriel Rubio, I would think prudently talking to Rubio, you would think like, hey, look how much you guys played behind Howard Cross and Riley Mills. Like, you can be the guy along with somebody else that plays 50 snaps and Heinisch is going to take 25 more, and someone else is going to take 25 more. I would think that would be the conversation as long as they want Gabriel Rubio in the fold and he wants to be in the fold. There's no reason anyone should think like I want 65 snaps. They have to tell Gabriel Rubio you're not going to get 65 snaps. Like that's the way it works at that position. So no one will surprise me going in the portal on the entire team, aside from maybe CJ Carr.
Pete, do you have any insight into that?
I don't, but I would just agree with O'Malley that like, look, there's been stuff with Gabriel Rubio in his career, so like the fact that there would be more stuff wouldn't surprise me.
And Tim talking about snap counts. I mean, he can play both positions. Both positions fit him, so that gives him a little bit more flexibility.
My point was to like Notre Dame fans, like why would he do this? Why would they let this happen? If they had a frank conversation with him, it was a positive one, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Other than blowing smoke, it would be a very positive. This would be partly a Gabriel Rubio thing, if indeed it was a typo. I mean, it wasn't our site. I have no idea of finding out why Gabriel Rubio's name was on there.
Yeah, we didn't. It was.
I saw the screenshot. I did see the screenshot. It was a true screenshot.
Yeah.
But I don't get the. There's not a million reasons. There's two reasons why it could have happened. It could have been somebody thinking he was going in. There could have been that he was announcing going in and didn't want it to be known. So there's two reasons, but we don't know which one's more true. There's not a million reasons though. I was wrong about that. There are literally two.
Right.
It's one of the two things happened.
And again, getting back to Parker Peterson, he's not the only one that Notre Dame is going to land on the interior defensive line. So Notre Dame. So the whole point is Notre Dame is not falling behind. They're just
we don't know about Rubio, but
and
that's not the craziest thing ever,
right. We moved on to the next question. That's true also. But
there's crazier names than Rubio is a good way to wrap this up, right? I mean, there's Rubio. You wouldn't be like, oh my God, this is the most incredible thing that he's going into the portal. That's not true. I would be more surprised by. He's better and younger, but I'd be shocked by Bryce Young. I would be very surprised if Josh Burnham goes in the portal, even though he's splitting time next year with Bryce Young. Josh Burnham hasn't had a lot of issues before now.
No.
So that would be a strict decision from Josh Burnham. That's
all right.
Probably the best way to
We do have a question from VA Doc 88. Given IU's offensive tendencies, which do you think will be the three most important defenders on Friday night for Notre Dame?
If we go outside the box, it's different. But I mean, Christian Gray and Leonard Moore and Xavier Watts come to mind right away. But I'll go Christian Gray, Xavier Watts, and Howard Cross.
I think Mills Cross Watts.
Okay.
Because Indiana's not going to be throwing the ball a whole lot.
They can't. It's just too cold and miserable.
I also looked at the weather this
morning
when I saw it feels like -2. I'm like, you're not throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Then Notre Dame wins. I mean, IU's got to be able to throw the football for them to.
It'll be nicer than that. I mean, it's going to be 45 on Sunday.
Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton, I like their two running backs. They're physical, not burners, but they're physical. There's only a 17 carry difference between the two. They're pretty interchangeable. They're good running backs, but I didn't look at it from that perspective. I was, we don't know. It could be 40 degrees next Friday. It probably isn't.
Well, it's going to be 45 Sunday, this Sunday, but you can't tell in South Bend when it's going to be in 10 days.
No, you really can't.
But for the record, the extended forecast is high of 34, low of 24 with a 30% chance of snow.
See, 24.
And then the wind. The wind
8 o'clock at night is nowhere near 34. Nowhere near 34.
You're not throwing the ball.
It's 24.
Yeah. Well, so I was looking at it from perspective if they, because if they don't throw the ball, they can't beat Notre Dame. If they throw the ball, I'm picking all secondary guys because a lot of back shoulder slants. Jordan Clark slants is going to have to be really good. If IU can go ahead and throw the football, back shoulder, Christian Gray is going to have to be really good.
I guess Jordan Clark. He has a tryout for us here at Irish Illustrated in the Athletic. We've anointed him over Harper and Tariq Bracy, and forgot that Harper and Tariq Bracy had the trials of Job to cover people as opposed to Jordan Clark, because he had Louisville and USC. They had the Ohio State wide receivers, Josh Downs, all over the field. And USC also, a guy named Jordan Addison was pretty good, and those guys
Caleb Williams also fine.
Yeah, also guys good. So this is Jordan Clark's big party here. He has to have a great playoff.
All right, quick hit. To O'Malley from JP Wirt. If the Irish were to make it to the NCAA championship, will the players that transferred to Notre Dame in January be eligible to play in the game?
No, otherwise they would be not hiding who they were picking up, probably. Just get all done right there. So
I mean, that
everybody would like to have those guys on their roster
look,
right now.
hey, in the future,
That's
it'll
right.
probably come into play in the future. Anything's possible. We're going to wrap up with a question from Bully Arwood. Whether he is ready or not experience wise, don't you think Marcus Freeman, with his large family in the smaller South Bend community and his conversion to Catholicism, is, quote, home and would resist the temptation to head to the NFL or even back to Ohio State?
Those are two different things entirely.
Mhm.
The NFL, I don't like my sources on this say like for how much the Bears keep coming up, I've been told Marcus Freeman is not interested in the Bears. Not interested at all. Ohio State is another issue entirely, and I think that that would be a very, very difficult situation for Notre Dame.
I agree. I don't.
Yeah, I
Ohio State's
like
going to be an issue until it's not an issue. That's
what
just
did I say? I got two words. Jim Tressel. I mean that's his coach. That's where he played and that was his coach and an opportunity to go to Ohio State. I don't know whether, I
I
don't
think Notre
think
Dame fans should root heavily for Ohio State to put one on Tennessee
And then maybe Oregon too.
and then lose.
that's
Just because
no,
I
that's because that's what you want.
I feel
That's
better that
what you want to happen.
way.
Hey, I was looking at the other day. I was looking at I'm a nobody
And then
ever.
lose to Boise State. Perfect. Get him in.
I,
Sorry, Tim.
I was looking at baseball hats because I love wearing baseball hats. Nobody ever sees me do that on here. And I went to a local store that has Colts, Cubs, White Sox, that kind of stuff. But I'm not I'm a Cubs fan, but and I was looking at colleges. Like I got and what I generally do is I get Jesus going on. Sorry, Pete. Um, like if I have a hooded sweatshirt or a hat, and you're like, why are you wearing that? It's like, well, because I either played a baseball game there or I covered a football game there for Notre Dame. And all the ones that I looked at, like I have Indiana State, which I think is a really cool hat, and I played baseball there, played a game at Indiana State. And I'm looking at all the hats, I'm like, man, there's only really one here that I like, and it's an Ohio State hat. Now I have covered Ohio State, but I don't think that I can purchase an Ohio State hat. Do you?
You enjoyed Columbus though. Columbus was fun.
It was a lot of fun. But damn, it's a nice looking hat. It's the black one. It's the one that Ryan Day wears a lot. And
You remember when somebody was wearing a Vanderbilt hat in a Brian Kelly press conference?
I remember
And
wearing
he
an
had a good
air.
reason to be wearing it, and Brian Kelly said something. He was like, "Oh, my son plays for Vanderbilt," and Kelly's like, "Shut it down right there on the spot." I have never noticed before a coach, and I'm sure they do, see a hat of because I don't think of Vanderbilt. It was not in 2018, by the way, because that would be weirder. But I have never noticed a coach like say something about somebody else wearing I don't think of hats as paraphernalia of another
Ooh,
team.
I think Tim has a very good story to share here because I do remember a coach noticing one time.
Me, you.
You,
Oh yeah. Brian Polian.
yeah, Arizona.
Yeah, I had an Arizona sweatshirt on because I couldn't, and I do have an Arizona State because it's really cool. Hooded sweatshirts, by the way.
Yes, not Tony the Tiger, but
Yeah,
other hooded
Brian
sweatshirts.
Polian gave me all kind of crap for having a Arizona University sweatshirt on. It was cold, and the only thing I had we were allowed to go into practice. This is really going on too long. Sorry, folks. And
I got one
anyway, he
more
gave
after
me.
this.
He
Yeah.
went. All right, now we're gonna wrap up with that.
Well,
I'm
I want
sorry.
to point out that this is as weird of a reaction of caring if you're wearing an Arizona sweatshirt as when Pete and I saw Polian talking to Justin Yoon because he hit the post on a 55-yard field goal in August once. And our exact comment was, what could he possibly be telling Justin Yoon right now about kicking field goals? So anyway, second weirdest Brian Polian story I've seen. There you go.
All right, my apologies to everybody. We should have wrapped up several minutes ago. When are we coming back? We're coming back
Monday
on Monday.
after, yes.
Yeah,
Sunday is Marcus Freeman. There's an adjusted schedule. Sunday has Marcus Freeman now.
so we'll have an instant analysis on Sunday.
Yep. Sunday will then have player interviews. Monday we'll have coordinators interviews, and after that we will have a podcast.
Yes, and our podcast will not be the second podcast will not be Thursday, it'll be Wednesday because the game's on Friday. All right,
Which threw me off. Yep.
we're cutting out. Tim Priester, Tim O'Malley, Pete Sampson, Irish Illustrated Insider. So long. Thanks.